Worlds clash in endless collision. Gaming news with a fierce precision. With a spark so wild it breaks the norm. In the tempest eye, a analyst face the score. Truth burns with a psychotic roar. Corrupt suits sneer what they despise. Dragon Cast will open your eyes. Integrity found in Dragon Cast. Fire breathing metal, screaming loud. Lavistro's here to shake the crowd. Psychotic dragon ready to ignite. Hold on tight, we're taking flight! Dragon Cast! Dragon Cast! Of justice cut through the dark. Lavistro's roar ignites the spark. A dragon's heart fiercely defends the gaming world. Our passion ascends. This is Dragon Cast. Dragon Cast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of Dragon Cast. We've been gone for a while due to IRL issues, most of y'all know, but we are so back. And while most people are doing their sandboxes for, pride and rainbows and whatever the fuck that shit is, we decided here on Dragon Cast that we will bring up some awareness for Men's Mental Health and PTSD Awareness Month. And I wouldn't be the dragon of cyberspace coming to you with all news, tips, and tricks within the gaming spectrum if I also don't cover tabletop RPGs, which is a great way to help your mental health. And so grab a slice of your favorite pizza and help me welcome the Eclectic Goat. Hello.
Good evening.
How are you?
It's real hot here, but, I haven't melted yet.
Yeah. Give it time. But before we continue, this is a little, I'm getting back to this thing. I think I told you, but for the chat, the panelists, this is not your usual time period. Plus, we haven't been streaming for a while, so everyone's trying to get back in the swing of things. But we'll go ahead and address the chat, which Val keeps making me say this. Hail all, and I'm not going to say it this time. Indeed, Scal. There. Hello, Val. Philip Morgan, one of our mods. Hello, Philip. We also have a racer ahead. Hello. King of Monsters, tossing in a steak. And our special guest, the Eclectic Goat. But yes, why don't you, since we're getting this swing of things and people are looking at thumbnails and probably seeing a purple dragon talk too much, why don't we go ahead and ask the question the chat is really asking us here, the hard questions. So, who the fuck are you? Why the fuck are you on my show? And why should my viewers care? And on top of that, since you do slice of RPGs, does pineapples go on pizza?
I am the Eclectic Goat. I have a YouTube channel also called the Eclectic Goat, and a Discord channel called the Eclectic Herd. I am a big fan of promoting indie TTRPGs and authors. I also happen to really like weird movies. So I am eclectic because I like a little bit of everything. And I bounce around as to what I'm doing according to what my interests are on any given day. I went from running Slice and Dice every Wednesday to we're taking a break to do shows you've never seen, to watch television shows you've never seen. And I just got done doing a 30-minute long video summarizing the history of zombies. So if that gives you some idea of how oddball we go. I'm here because I was invited and because I love talking about TTRPGs. Um, and I guess as to why people should care would depend on the person. So if you like role playing, you're going to enjoy this. If not, you're just going to have to deal with all the goat jokes I'm probably going to make.
Yep. That brings me another question. Why goats? Why not a dragon? Why not the Eclectic dragon? We need more dragon representation. Why not? Why not that? What's with
Because
the goat?
I actually raise goats. And
Ah,
when I originally got on YouTube, it was because I was raising goats, and they're an extremely rare breed of goat. So I was also publicizing them, and then I got into publicizing rare games and rare television instead.
that's all. That's how it goes.
The animal rights people were less kind than the Twitter people, and much better at tracking down where I lived. So I decided to give up the whole animal on YouTube thing.
Yeah. Silly animal rights people. Animals are food.
I mean, animal rights is fine, but or animal. Let me say this: animal welfare is fine.
Yes.
You know, I'm all for like raising animals ethically. Mine are currently
Mhm.
running around on 3 acres of grass that's taller than they are. Um, but yeah, I am not abusing animals because I spend $200 a week feeding them.
Yeah, exactly. Or you're not trying to say people can't have certain animals and then shove them in their dumpster. Looking at you, PETA, the ghosts of those dogs are still haunting your area. I'm just saying. But no,
PETA's a little nuts, but there are some out there that are much scarier in different ways.
oh yeah, no, I totally agree. I just really, really don't like PETA. I used to, I don't know if I told you, but I used to be a farm boy. So we raised animals. My dad was a landscaper. He would cut down trees, sometimes for the state would hire him. And every now and then he'd come home with a bird or a raccoon or one time even a coyote, a baby coyote. Don't get me wrong. He did not endanger his children. He grew up he was born in 1950. This gives you an idea how my dad is. And so I had a raven as a pet. We had a raccoon, and the thing is, we tried to nurse him and bring him back into the wilds. That was the whole thing. He wanted us to. Uh, he uh, he called it teach. He said, "Teach the children to love the land, and they will love their country." Like he was a Vietnam vet. That was like his whole big thing. And in a way, it kind of did tie me to the land, so to speak, to where I have respect for animals. But at the same time, I'm not going to be like, oh, animals should have rights. I'm like, no, they're lesser species. When they start saying, who am I? Why the fuck am I here? And they start asking the three sentient being questions to where I can't eat them because now they're sentient, then I'm going to start to worry. Until then,
See, because they can't talk, there's no way to know that. So
yeah.
I tend to judge based on level of intelligence.
Mhm.
If they can problem solve and do teamwork, then I get kind of uncomfortable about eating them. I do not eat pork for that reason.
Well,
Because they have done tests and the average pig is as smart as the average 8 to 10-year-old.
more bacon for me then. But no, I
And
respect that.
they well, my whole thing is that I won't eat anything that I would not kill myself if I needed to. And I don't know. I'm kind of uncomfortable killing something that might have a higher IQ than me.
Yeah, I agree. But well, actually, I didn't have that problem. I'm a vet, but I do. I do and I don't. Let's put it that way. Let's get this conversation awkward.
I was going to say this could get grim really fast, so we might want to
Yeah,
move into we might want to move
yeah.
into killing the fantasy things.
But what got you into TTRPGs? Like,
Oh, good lord! I've been gaming for 35 years, so
Yeah,
Uh,
everyone has a great origin story. I've learned when it comes to video games. Like for me, I'll share mine first, so that way you can have an idea why I do this. I used to be extremely socially awkward uh, in school as a kid. I wouldn't understand, people roasting me or the difference between a joke and someone actually being a bully. I thought everyone was against me. And it was because we lived out in the middle of nowhere, right? We were me and my mom, my sister, and I were the minorities of the community, and the community was like a town of 50 people or something like that. Farmers and all that stuff. It used to be a cattle bearing town in its heyday, right? So nowadays, since they have trucks and stuff like that, they don't need trains. It was, you know, a ghost town for the most part. And my mom decided, she saved up some money. We were in poverty, and she managed to buy me a Game Boy Brick with the Legend of Zelda. And in it was an advertisement for Nintendo Power saying I'm more than a conqueror. She put that on my window, my mirror, and said I should see that every day. And if I conquered my social anxiety issues, she would get me a new game. And well, Legend of Zelda happened to have Link, who was left-handed, which I am. So that and the whole I want to play a new game, and she said, "Don't worry about it. I will figure it out. You just continue improving." And well, it made me the person I am today. So that's my game. So that's why I always like to hear people's origin stories when it comes to games, because I always find it fascinating. So why don't you tell us yours?
I got into video games fairly late. And I'm sort of selective as to what I play. Number one, because I'm super cheap. And number two, because my eyesight is kind of poor. I have trouble, especially with a lot of the modern day graphics. So I tend to play a lot of older games. Role playing I got into quite young. I also grew up a ways away from most people, and there was one other girl near me, and she was a girly girl, and I never have been. Um, and then there were, the geeks, and there were the guys who did things like shoot themselves in the foot when they were 14, because they were messing around. The ones who were always in trouble and, eventually ended up doing drugs and things like that. So the geeks were kind of by default. I always loved to read. Um, I grew up without a television during a time where everyone had a television. So I did a lot of reading. And because we were so far away from most things, I,
Your food. Oh, yes.
there weren't a lot of movies or anything like that. So I read a lot. And then you're rustling. I don't know if you know you're rustling.
I'm sorry, my son came by saying McDonald's was here, and he brought me the bag, and I'm like, oh my god. So, and then, right when I was switching my headphones,
I was gonna say I knew you were switching your headphones, so I didn't know if
yeah,
you knew that you were rustling.
yeah,
So yeah, there was a guy that like got the very early D&D like box stuff. And so we got together and we started playing, and looking back, he was a really terrible game master. He has completely ruined Magic in pretty much every system, 35 years later. But I loved the creation. I am not by nature a creative person. I'm a very oriented person. Um, and so that really became my outlet because, I wanted to be creative, and I just wasn't very good at it. So I can't draw and I can't paint and I can't sing and I can't do music, and but I can tell stories. And then in college, I got into running horror games. Discovered that there were way better games out there than D&D. Um, kind of expanded my repertoire over the years, and then in the last few years have really gotten into promoting indie games that, nobody's ever heard of because they're wonderful ideas, but they don't have the marketing budget that the bigger companies do, and they don't really have an audience, and they may be great at developing games, but they're not always good at developing themselves. So
Yeah. Well,
so
I
that's
didn't know
me.
you. I didn't know you played video games as well. I don't remember hearing you mention that in your live streams. I usually lurk. That's why you don't see me too much. I'm always lurking everywhere.
I don't know if it's actually come up in Slice and Dice. I think it's come up in a couple other things where people get talking about the price of video games. And I say,
Mhm.
well, you just do like me and, stay 10 years behind the current trend. And, video games are $5 a pop.
Yep. Well, there's that, and kind of like how you promote indie TTRPGs. I tend to look and find alternative games because, well, that's what started Dragon Cast for me and streaming in general. I streamed Enshrouded when it first came out, back last year, and I'm tired of people saying there's no good games out there. All the games are woke. I'm like, I'm playing Enshrouded. It's fucking awesome, and
Yeah, there are a lot of great games out there.
you just gotta look. That's why.
I
That's
mean,
when.
there's some terrible ones, but there are also
Yeah,
some really good ones.
yeah. You
There's
just gotta look for them.
there's a oh, what is it called? I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but the concept is wonderful, but the art, they tried to be really artsy about it. And so the game looks like a quilt. Everything looks kind of patchworked. And it's a beautiful idea, but I have terrible vision and I can never see anything. Everything just becomes a blur every time you move.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but there's also really good games like, especially if I don't have a lot of time and I just, need a break from life. There's a game called Help Will Come Tomorrow. And
I don't think I've
you
heard of that game.
it's really neat. It's kind of a historical Russian game. It takes place right as the Tsar is being overthrown. And so the the I don't know, terrorists or whatever you want to call them end up bombing a train, and you are one of the survivors of the train wreck. The issue is that some people are, impoverished and some people are royalty, and so it's a resource game. But one of the resources that you have to develop is you have to make them get along, because if they refuse to work together, the group will literally just split up and leave, and then you all die. But it's one of those games where you can play for 2 minutes or you can play for a half an hour, and it doesn't matter, and then you just walk away at any point and leave the game up.
Mhm.
And then come back whenever you have time. So, like, if I'm really busy or I'm expecting a call or whatever, it's just a great time filler for, like I said, you can go 2 minutes or you can go an hour.
Yep. So that was interesting. Actually, I like playing.
Somebody wants to know if you're drunk.
Oh no, I'm not drunk, pal. It's my freaking AI or not AI, VTuber thing. It's being super sensitive since I haven't been streaming as a dragon too much. For some reason, VTube Studios will like reset all my settings. And so it froze me and it will unfreeze me. And then when I set the headset on, I tested all this out. And when I say my headset was dead, it's not like it died of batteries. It dead as in I'm not gonna work anymore. it's a cord one. So it's like, so
Technical difficulties will always abound at the worst time. I always say that, when I'm starting a stream, I tell people I need you there about 20 to 30 minutes before the stream, because 99% of the time you're going to get there, everything's going to work fine, and we're going to sit there and like stare at each other for 20 minutes. But
yeah,
there's going to be a 0.1% of the time where someone's going to have issues and it's going to take about 20 minutes to fix them.
Yeah.
And the
No,
and the person who has technical issues is always going to be the person who shows up 5 minutes before the stream starts.
yes. Or in my case, I show up before everyone. I'm there literally an hour ahead of time normally. And I'm sitting there trying to, get my browsers ready, trying to make sure everything's all set, done. Like I'm not gonna be perfect, but I want to mitigate all the risks. And then sometimes my panelists will show up, 5 minutes early or 15 minutes early. But mind you, they got more subscribers to me. They've been doing this for a while. And even though I prep for everything, check everything, test everything. I mean, you came in here, so I was already in here already. It will still decide to derp. So I just call myself the most professional of the professional YouTubers because that seems to be our lot in life. Technical difficulties.
Technology will always fail you at the worst possible time.
Yes. So you started, I'm trying to make sure I wrote my notes here. You started back in college hosting horror games, but you did the box set. Now I'm going to assume for the D&D that was the OG 1980s red box set.
Did we use the red set or the blue set or both? I think we used both. And then we, graduated to AD&D when that came out, and I played some of that in college as well. But I've told this story on other channels, but so it was a college club, which meant you couldn't exclude anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So we had this one player who made it his goal to join every game and basically wreck it. He was going to die in the worst possible way or the most interesting possible way, take the rest of the team out. He trashed every game. And it got to the point where no one wanted to run because you're going to put all this work in and then it was just not, it was going to come to nothing.
Yeah.
So we got to the point where, I think there was one other person that was willing to run still. And he was getting ready to give up, and the whole club was going to collapse.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided, well, I've never run a game before, but we need to solve this problem because I don't want to lose my gaming club. So I discovered the game Cult, and I'd never run horror. I'd never played a horror game, not real horror anyway. Yeah, I'd played a little vampire, but that's not really the same thing. And I gave him an immortal character. And he took it, and he's like, oh, this is going to be great. Now I, don't have to, I can trash the game and it will never end. And I told him, I said, if you join this game, you cannot, just make up another character. I put a lot of time into this. You have to agree in front of all these people that unless you die, you can quit the game, but you can't, you can't just quit and come back with another character. And he said, yeah, no big deal. So within 3 sessions, he was a quadriplegic because he had missed the fact that being immortal did not mean you couldn't be hurt. And he said, well, I want another character. And I said, no, you're not dead yet. And he said, but I can't do anything. And I said, you'll heal eventually. And I figured he'd quit, but he didn't. He stuck it out. He actually started thinking through problems, and he eventually became a really good role player.
Yeah.
It was just, I always say, even the worst of gamers, you could usually give them enough rope to hang themselves, and either they'll quit or they'll get really good at it.
Yeah. That actually kind of, I'm going to ask it now. I was going to ask it later, but that kind of gets to one of the questions I want to ask is, well, you answered one of them completely, which was how do you deal with toxic players? And I think you just answered that. But, for those who don't know or don't play TTRPGs, a toxic player is literally what the Eclectic Goat was talking about here. and the fact that they would come in there and they tried to dive bomb everything or railroad everything because they couldn't get their way in the game, or just they just want to ruin everyone's day. That's how they get their jollies. So,
Well, it turned out in his case, he actually also was really socially anxious, and he just like his way of dealing with it was to try and be the class clown. And he thought it was funny. He thought he was being funny.
yeah.
He was not out to just now I have had players whose goal was to destroy the game. And I've had more issues with power gamers. Like they wanted to be the game. I had a guy once who basically found every possible loophole in Werewolf to just make himself like this massive tank that had tons of guns and everything else. And I let him play it. He came in obviously ready for a fight because he thought I was going to say, no, this character is completely overpowered. And I said, no, you're good. And I made him write down how many bullets he had. Because he was sort of like thinking, well, bullet count isn't going to matter and how much I'm carrying isn't going to matter. And then I sent him back to Werewolf Dark Ages. And when he ran out of bullets, they burned him at the stake as a witch.
Oh my goodness.
Because he just went willy-nilly, running around shooting everything. Scared the bejesus out of the entire, large town that they were in. They didn't know what guns were. As far as they knew, like he just, was throwing Satan's tooth. And everyone else in the party knew exactly what was going to happen. And they all tried to warn him. And then they all went, we're not with that guy.
Yes. One thing I've noticed, like I would read TTRPG books as a kid growing up. Like couldn't really play the game, being on a farm away from everybody. No one wanted to play TTRPGs at school. Even when Magic came out, and when I tried that, I played it for a little bit, but I wanted to play TTRPGs. I liked the stories and stuff like that. So I didn't get to play until I was in the army. I got one chance to play. It was a one shot for 3.5e, and that's the one I love, D&D 3.5e. But I didn't get to play another game. It was a one shot. I can't remember. I remember playing it, and it was a homebrew. So I don't like because a homebrew can't be. All the rules were literally rules as written, raw, right? So rules as written, you can't deviate from that. But I didn't get to play again until 5e came out, and I think it was the Waterdeep campaign when they started coming out with that one, and that was when my son was old enough. Yeah, it was. My son was finally old enough to where I could go out because my ex and I divorced, and I'm the primary, so I'm raising him on my own. And well, it was kind of hard because I'm used to playing single player RPGs online, on computer and stuff or video games. And I wanted to be a good player. I wanted to be. I didn't want to be the powerhouse, or anything like that. I just wanted to be, I kind of figured since we're all playing on the table, it's going to be a group effort. And I kind of got the gold shoulder because I didn't know what I was doing. And they literally thought I was like one of those, what they call quote unquote toxic players. And I was like, no, I just don't know how to play the game. And it took me 15 tables before I could finally find a table that was willing to teach me. And then the madness that is WotC now starts showing up. So then I was doomed again because now I can't go over there because all the people that wanted to bake cakes and like literally they turned a Waterdeep campaign into a coffee shop cake baking thing.
Yeah, I've seen there are write-ups for that now. Like, here's how you
Yeah.
start a business in
I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. I mean, like, yeah, having a business is cool and all, but like
yeah.
I remember there was I can't remember which. I don't have the book anymore. I let someone borrow it, and they never brought it back. But there was a book research I had about building your castle and having research. This is like before all this nonsense started. I think it was.
Mhm.
I want to say it was right before old school revival became a more prominent. I mean, like it was been around for a while, like even in 3.5e era. But I think 3.3 D&D 3 was the reason why OSR came around. Is because something like I can't remember. It was like it's been a while, but they had it, but it was like you run through the maintenance real quick in the beginning of your sessions. Is the way the book describes it. So if you have a castle, you can talk to the DM and be like, okay, I want to build this, and the DM makes sure you do your maintenance upkeep and all that, and it's usually supposed to last about 5 minutes. Nowadays, it's like, okay, you have a baking shop. We're going to role play as a baker. I'm like, okay, if I mean, I never worked at Starbucks. I never worked at baking, but why would I want to role play in an environment that I work in? I mean, I don't now. I don't do that. But like most of these people at my table, they were like Walmart employees and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't
good.
I'm never quite sure what to say about that because I mean, I'm not necessarily of the mindset that like there are people that really like playing merchants in these games.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I can see the entertainment in that. I can see how you could go from being a even incorporate part of being a baker with being an adventurer. I mean, I really love Shadow of the Demon Lord because you do have, I don't know, a regular job as well as being an adventurer.
Mm-hmm.
Um and that really is part of your role play. But I don't understand only like why are you role playing? Why are you not playing like I don't know, one of those freebie games on your phone that lets you start a bake shop? Like I just don't quite understand it. Um But, I mean, to each their own. It's just not my kind of game, and it's not something I have any interest in playing.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of tabletop that I found. Like there's but people don't realize like there's the Power Rangers TTRPG, there's
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember seeing a Stargate one. There's one about literally running a business. Then there's one that's very controversial. We won't go too much into it, but people focus on the notorious part of it and not the fact that the guy who made it literally was trying to recreate life as an RPG. And it's called Fatal for another from another time, another life. I don't know if you
Hmm.
know that one, but
It's not familiar, no.
yeah, there's two books on it. Okay, there's one that's um NSFW supplement for D&D, and then
Mhm.
there's this total another game. I actually have the book because I like cookie, interesting things. Like I have two magazines that are canon from Dragon Magazine that the Watsy wishes they never printed. Nowadays Watsy wishes they never printed because it's for 3.5e, and it has a succubus's dungeon in there, and you're supposed to rescue a wizard from it. If that makes sense, it's rated AO. Let's put it that way, and it's in the magazine. But Fatal, what it did is you roll your stats for your character, but the character development is so in depth. You literally would roll your everything about your body, literally every. Let's put it that way, just literally everything from what weight you are to the size of your butthole. Like it gets crazy, but
Pun
that's where
intended.
people. Oh, it gets like crazy detailed. You could literally run as a peasant, right? So you you go through, you're farming your land, you're selling your potatoes. It's literally a medieval TTRPG, and it tells you how much you should be able to make based on your current skills
Hmm.
of that time period. So you're literally living a medieval lifestyle in this RPG. And the guy who made it, the guy was like a mathematician or something, because like I said, you want to talk about crunchy games. Like Conan the Barbarian TTRPG is crunchy. I've read it. I've single played that thing as a kid. But this game, I never even bothered playing this game because of how crunchy everything you do is. Literally a dice roll for a dice roll just to do the dice roll. It's super ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really fussy about whether or not something is crunchy or not crunchy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I care more about whether or not the world is interesting, but I don't have a whole lot of use for games that put rules in place for no particular reason. Like, um, so here's a sneak peek. I had a company that sent me a game to do a review on, which I have not yet done. And there are these random points where you just have to do, like, you're looking for information.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're called like action moments or something. And you have a certain amount of time to get a certain amount of successes. And if you fail, like something bad happens. But
Yeah.
if you're looking for information and you get any success, you should at least get some information, at least in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they just wanted to add this extra thing in so that they could say our game isn't like other people's, near as I can figure. Um, which I mean, I guess is fine. It's actually a fairly popular game with some other people, but um, I'm sort of like I would just cut that out completely because it just seems like it would bog the game down and you just get lost doing this same activity over and over and over again, trying really hard to get the right number of successes.
Oh yeah.
And I don't really get why that. Yeah, I just don't get it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit. Well, actually, I want to ask you something before I get to that one. I'm jumping around here. But have you ever dungeon mastered?
I mean, that's pretty
Or
much all I do these days.
yeah.
I very rarely play anymore. Um, I do a
I mean,
lot
full
of.
disclosure for everyone. Yeah, I watch her streams, but I don't assume everyone knows who Electric Goat is. So yeah, I'm just putting out there to them. Says, Lavistro, you said you watched her live. Like, yes, I do, but, but yeah, go ahead. I'm
Um,
sorry.
no, that's fine. Um, I've lost what I was. Well, I lost my train of thought.
All right.
Yeah. I pretty much run exclusively these days. Currently, I'm running about 4 games a month on average. I have a real life campaign. I have um, I can't. I don't know. Campaign isn't really the right word. It's a bunch of short adventures that I'm running for some friends from high school that like I don't get to see anymore because they live across the country. So I run for them online, and that's kind of our way of staying in touch. Um, and let's see, I have a group of people that I run for who've never gamed before
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want people to run into that situation you did where, everyone else knows how to play and nobody wants to be bothered to teach. And so I intentionally do groups of people who have never played before until they start feeling comfortable playing. And then they go off and they find other groups and I'll start a new player group.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and then I usually run a one shot live at the local gaming store once a month when I have time. And this weekend, I am going to be demoing at least 6 indie games at the local convention in 2 days, and I
Nice.
will be exhausted.
Oh, I bet. I tried DMing once, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, but I learned real quick. I don't have being a single parent. I don't have time. I really don't. I wish I did. I wish I could. Not to mention I sucked. I won't lie. You always suck with your first game. You will every game, everything you do the first time will always suck. But I was so horrible. My friends wanted us to do the Tombs of was it the Tombs? Yeah, the Forgotten Tomb for 2E. Or was it 1E? The one it's like
Trying to remember. That sounds like a 1E game, but it may have been one that came out like right before or something. The thing is though that maybe this is just me and the way my brain works, but I think I don't like modules. In fact, I just had a discussion about this on a different stream this morning. I think they have a place for things like conventions or something like that, but I think in a lot of ways they are harder to run because you have to. There's no room for if players do something you don't expect. It's much harder to adapt if it's a module than if it's your own idea.
Yes. And the way I see modules it's great if you're learning the game. Like I was always an outsider looking in, so I could never join a table growing up, but I could buy the modules, which I don't understand why they sold them because they would never sell. I was the only one buying them. Like the Walmart clerks would be like, oh, we got a new book in, or they'd be like, oh, no new books came in. If we came into Walmart to buy stuff, I was always buying, TSR books. I don't know why the manager or Walmart actually sold them, but they did. And
because they knew you were going to buy them.
Yeah, but apparently I was the only one buying them.
I bet you weren't. I bet you weren't because otherwise they wouldn't have kept them.
They would have 5 TSR books, right? Those little paperback books. And it would sit in there on the shelves, and I would buy one, and the book vendor would never restock them because no one was ordering. So it was always 4 until the book vendor came back the next month with new material or stuff like that. And then he or she, I don't know if it was a boy or girl, I don't know. I never was it. They do it when I was in school. So on my way home, I would check. That's why they knew me, because I was always either I was going to the electronics department or I was going to the book department. And but I always saw modules as something to help you learn how to play the game, but or as DM how to run it. But you kind of, the books should, like the books from the TSR days, especially the early 3.5 days and today, are 2 different book styles. Like the way I feel it is there was more leeway in the older books, while nowadays like, okay, your players have to do this, they have to do that. Perfect example. You ever heard of Puff and Forest, the YouTube channel?
I haven't, but I understand what you're talking about. That actually is it's one of my issues with 5e. Like, you don't even really need a game master. It's just to choose your own adventure book.
Yep. But in Puff and Forest,
drives me crazy.
In one of his videos, he was talking about how he was running a campaign as one of his early DM days, and the adventurers are supposed to turn themselves in as slaves and be totally okay with that. The players did not do that. They kill everybody They go in there, break into the temple, cause pandemonium, kills the NPC contact you're supposed to get in touch with, and he was so totally unprepared. And he's like, "So what do I
Mhm.
do if all this happens?" And like, I'm like, "Well, that's D&D. I mean, like, what do you what do you expect?" And when I look at the book myself, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's they are very strict now that you have to do it this way. You have to make sure the player's a slave." Like, what if I don't want to be a slave? What if I play as a person who has an issue in my backstory that does not like slavery? Like, I play all kinds of crazy characters. Like, I play right now. I'm having fun with the necromancer classes. So while most people do the whole edgelord McLean builds, I'll do like I played as one of them was a wizard who was interested in the power of the necrotic powers. He was trying to study how it works. He wanted to know how it works, and so he was using necromancy, but he was more of like an absent-minded professor as opposed to an actual evil wizard, right? And the current
I
one
know I
I'm
left that
doing,
zombie. I know I left that zombie somewhere.
oh no, I got to before I go to the other one, I got to tell you this. So we were playing the Tombs of Annihilation run, right? And there's this NPC that was a homebrewed NPC in there to kind of spice up the game, who could make masks to kind of make it so that the undead wouldn't bother you, so you could run through the jungle and all this stuff. He said, but I need some undead as uh, to experiment with. And me being the asset my professor, who now is learning some new knowledge, new secrets. I'm like, oh, I'm excited now. Necrotic magic, just gotta be necrotic. He goes, so he just blurts out, I got undead, and he opens his bag of holding right in front of everybody in the village and drops out 5 zombies. And our paladin, he's like, I can't, he's not evil, I can't kill him. He's not evil, I can't kill him. He's just stupid.
Have you seen the little YouTube clip? This wizard comes up to the thief slash assassin and says, "All right, I need something from you, no questions asked. I need I need a human skull." And the assassin looks at him and says, "All right, but only if you don't ask any questions either." And the wizard goes, "Uh, okay." And the assassin pulls 5 skulls out of his bag and says, "Which
Yes.
one?"
This one's fine.
He's like, and the wizard goes, "Why are you?" "Nope, never mind. This one's fine."
Yeah, that's one thing I love about D&D or TTRPG content creators is that they'll take their table sessions, right? And they'll retell that story as content, which is, you get some of the funniest and craziest stories that came out of nowhere. And they're not all murder hobos. Some are just like the pristine skulls, or like someone talks about the wizards. Like, I think yeah, it's the same channel. Polydoodles is what you're referring to.
Yeah, yeah,
Um
yeah, yeah.
they're taking it from another content creator who reads Reddit stories. I can't remember his name, but they animate his stories, which still, like, it's fun. It's letting off a little steam. That's one thing I like about TTRPGs, because I'm not exactly a bright, cheery person, let's just say, because of my PTSD and stuff like that. But I'm also not an edgelord McLean. I've played with players who like, what in the world, what this happened to my character, and all of a sudden all the bad things happen. He's just like this loner. I'm like, oh, please, for the love of God, this is like main character syndrome.
I am really happy when I get someone that's like, "Yes, I was a guard. Both my parents are still alive. I have a great relationship with my family and my sister."
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh, good, no brooding backstory. Yay!"
No, I get detail of my backstory, but that's so I can like I'll get out there. If I don't put myself in certain limitations, I will literally change my character, which will piss off the party. So I've even told my current dungeon master, I was like, I write my like, we're playing. He allowed me to bring my character in that I had fun with during the Witchlight campaign, and he's actually going to be interviewed this Saturday. I'm going to interview him this Saturday. But my DM at that time period, who was literally working with me to build my character and teach me how to play TTRPGs, it was during the Witchlight campaign, and we came up with, well, surprise, a hat dragon from 3.5e. He put it into the 5e realm for the Witchlight campaign, and I had just got done reading, like I read the Forgotten Realms book series, the actual books
Mm-hmm.
and Dragonlance. So I wanted to play as, this and that, and I would put him into the lore like he was his mom was like this evil elf who had issues with the Rashomon and all this other stuff. And so she made a pact with a black dragon. This whole backstory, right? And then all of a sudden, her chosen weapon, her own son, basically, her own chosen weapon decides, yeah, fuck the Netherese, fuck the Rashomon, and fuck you. I just want to go and raise a family in peace in a white picket fence. Now, the problem with that is he says this, and he's a necromancer. So when he says, I just want to raise a family in peace, he's literally meaning, I just want to have a family of my own, but everyone thinks he wants to go to the cemetery and raise a family from the dead. And he's like, I do it to kind of give him like a challenge, like, a character art growth series.
Mm-hmm.
So he's you imagine this person who's literally raised in the woods. He's not an edgelord. He's just doesn't understand social etiquette. And he's trying to be good. He's a lawful evil because he's a half black dragon, but he wants to be good. He wants to do the right thing. And because of the dice rolls, when he has to do his thing, when he tries to do good, I always seem to have bad rolls, low rolls or crit failures. So I'm like, he always goes, every time I try to do something good, it turns out to be evil. And the one time he has to do evil, it actually turns out to be good. So he's like, I'm like, oh yeah, my character is definitely happy now. He did good. And like our one of our players is like, well, technically he did bad. I was like, yeah, but it all works out for good in the end. That's why he's happy. He's like, don't take this away from him. But it runs. It's fun seeing people's different characters and how they add into the story. It's just, for me, I always got annoyed with the edgelords or the toxic players or the ones that are like trying to insert themselves in a certain way. Like, there's one, she was an elf, and her backstory was literally her own like personal backstory, and she would go through and get mad that certain characters wouldn't interact with her because she was also lesbian, and really making the DM's wife, who was also a player, very uncomfortable. It's like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, dude, this is literally not the place for that. I'm like, yeah, if you want to have an NSFW time, go for a table that supports that. I'm all support playing games your way, but there's you gotta work as a team. That's the whole beauty of, for me, of a TTRPG. You learn problem solving skills, critical thinking.
I think it depends on the genre, because if you look at vampire, I mean, having conflict is actually part of the game.
Yeah.
My brother in college, my brother is also a role player. And in college, he was in a vampire game that was so large it took 8 game masters.
Mm-hmm.
And it ran for the entire year, and it was very complex. And at the very end of it, they managed to like do all the things they were supposed to do and save the world and yada yada yada. And then they gathered back together in a warehouse for kind of the final touch. Except they had started the game by killing the master of one group of vampires. And that group of vampires protested, and they were like, nope, we need the power in order to accomplish this. It's for the greater good. And so that group just kind of said, okay, whatever. But meanwhile, they plotted behind the scenes the entire game. And at the very end of the game, when everyone gathered back together at the end of this, they flew a plane into the warehouse and killed the entire group. Like, that kind of political backstabbing is exactly what Vampire is all about.
Yeah, pretty much.
Paranoia. I mean, part of the point of paranoia is to intentionally kill off your. I mean, it's a comedic game, but
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to advance by killing off your team members.
Yeah, no, like those are fine, like, but I'm not like how do I put it? Like, there's a fine line to me. There's a fine line between, those, what do you call them? Those freaking stress card disclaimer things that they do nowadays, where you say you have
Oh,
to take
the
this.
red cards? Is that what they're?
I don't know what they're called. That basically says, okay, if you're gonna run this game, you have to say that your game's gonna have this, this, and this.
Yeah, they're.
And
So
then,
the safety thingies, safety
yeah,
guidelines. Yeah.
and
Well, there's also something called red cards they use at conventions, which is this is making me uncomfortable. You need to stop.
yeah, no. See, like like here's how I feel. Okay, you're gonna run a campaign. If it's a custom campaign or whatever, right? You tell them what's about, and you could say, if you wanted to, you could say this also has this, that. That's your. I believe that should be an optional thing to say. It's your job as the player to ask the DM or the person holding the hosting the event. Hey, I'm uncomfortable with this type of thing. Is this game going to have this in there? And then the DM will be like, yes, it is. And it's that DM's choice to decide, unless it's like on those eventually bullshit events or, those, company sanctioned events, right? You need to work with the game master. If they don't want to change it, then move on to another table. But I don't think we need safety cards.
Well, I think it varies. I mean, I hate safety cards. I hate the safety checks. I hate the red cards. I hate the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because I think that it should be like your your game master with the person that wanted the not safe for work stuff. It shouldn't be hard for the group to just speak up and go, no.
Yeah.
But like, peer pressure works for a reason. It shouldn't be, I have a red card and therefore that, automatically overcomes everyone else's objections. If the
Mm-hmm.
entire group is not okay with not safe for work, or if the entire group is okay with not safe for work and one person isn't, then that person can either like suck it up or leave.
Yeah, exactly.
I do think, I mean, so like, I'm doing a convention this weekend. That convention will include a whole lot of people. I don't know. It's also going to include a whole lot of games. I don't really know. And so my response is going to be to basically run PG-13 stuff. I mean, most of the games I'm running are PG-13 anyway, but there are a couple that could be edgy. I'm just not going to run those ones.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know who I'm going to get. I could get teenagers. I have no way of knowing. I could get prudy people. But if I'm running a regular game, when I advertise, I say I run horror. I run adult horror. You're expected to be an adult when you're here. If that's a problem, don't come, because I'm not doing safety checks. I'm not. But like, my safety check is to say I don't do safety checks.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like that's your optional thing. Like, you don't have to say it, but you say it's a courtesy saying, hey, I don't want you to leave my table. But if you don't like this, the fact that I don't do safety checks and we're just rolling off the cuff, then best not to be at this table. Like, those I understand, I respect, and I totally agree with. It's the ones where you're mandatory required to, or rather the safety cards. Like, for example, I have PTSD. And one of the things I have issues with because of my time in Iraq is child killing.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem with it in video games. I don't know why. I think it's because the way it's described and your brain can create its own imagery. I think that's probably why.
Oh, your brain can always come up with more horrific things than.
Yes, but I would
That's why.
tell I would tell my the DMs. I would go, it's like, hey, I don't want to be the guy that ruins your world or anything like that. I can't stand child death. So it's like I'll be honest. Like, I have PTSD from this, but I don't want my problem to affect the fun of everyone else. So if you had that in there, could you tell me a session that is going to be in there, and we'll just put my characters in NPC mode, because I would like to be involved, but I don't want to see that kind of stuff. And they'll like say, "Oh yeah, we had child thing in there. We can work with that." Or they say, "Oh yeah, we don't have that in there." And I'm like, "Sweet, cool."
Wait,
Except for one person.
You're telling me you take responsibility for your own issues?
Yeah, I don't want to be the problem character. I was like, I know I can be odd and I get too immersed and I'll lose myself into, even in TTRPGs, I enjoy them to the point where I forget that, sometimes I need to step back. I'm always trying to help the other characters out. I'm always like, if they roll for Arcana, for example, I'll roll for Arcana too, because, well, I have an extremely high intelligence. And so I'm trying to help them out because, I don't have a lot of support spells. I'm not a paladin or a cleric.
Can
But
I ask a question?
good.
Just because I'm never actually sure how to handle these kinds of things. Do you have an issue like if the goal is to rescue children from harm? Like, because there's always a chance you're gonna fail.
Yeah, there's always a chance it depends, right? Like, for example, Curse of Strahd. Spoilers for anyone who hasn't played Curse of Strahd. I don't give a shit because the game's been out for a while.
It sucks.
But there was a scene. I don't know if it was added in there or because I don't have the actual book, the module. I don't have it, but there's a scene in there where there's these hags, right? And they give you pastries. And, well, I was playing a wizard who was trying to be Gandalf at that time. I was not doing an edgelord character. I was literally trying to make Gandalf in Curse of Strahd, and it did not work. Because he ate the pastries. And he was always eating the pastries. And I was failing all of my perception checks. I was like, why is the DM giving me perception checks and all this other shit? What the fuck is going on? And he had the alignment mechanics in there. So, like, as you make decisions, depending on your decisions, you might go, lawful good, lawful evil, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I went from lawful good to lawful evil, and I was still frustrated about it. And he says, well, you'll find out later. Then we find out the witches were using children to make pastries. Like, we were eating children. That's what was giving us the good dreams and all that stuff. It's because we were eating the children. And I was
I have an issue with that affecting your alignment because intention matters.
Yes. At that point in time, it wasn't just that, but it was like that way gave me a minor because I kept failing the perception. And he says, he's like, his argument was, well, I know you're a new player, and I know you're still learning, but this is something good for you to learn. When a DM makes you do a perception check, you should always look for other ways if you fail to decide why is that happening. It's like that's why I kept letting you.
But
I don't have to tell you.
That's metagaming. Your GM sucked.
Yeah, he
was terrible.
He did. He called himself a professional DM. And if I couldn't make it, he tried to. If I couldn't make a table,
equals I just want to get paid for this.
Yeah, that's literally what it was. Because when I couldn't make a table because my son was sick or something, he literally would still try to charge me. And
I mean, that's actually pretty normal.
Like, I would tell them in
it's like a doctor's office unless you give them so much notice. But I have strong feelings about the professional DM thing. So
that's why one thing I've learned was, okay, if I'm going to play online with a professional DM or anybody, I'll ask them, hey, I'm a single parent. Sometimes kids get sick or this or happen, and I can't. And if I have to cancel, can we work that out because I don't want to pay for something I'm not there. But I will always try to give you the advance notice when I can. I'm always going to try to make it for table. I really want to be here, but parenting responsibilities. And well, current DM I have, awesome guy. But yeah, but was get to answer your question, we were getting sidetracked. Was I didn't have as much problem because he literally just said they used kids to make the pastries. Now, if we're talking about like, and I raised like you go into this room and there's just, it looks like a slaughter and you need all this other stuff, and you start describing the room is full of bodies of children, you won't hear me respond for a while because I'm having an episode.
So don't play cult.
No, I was
Not
told
not
don't
just
play
with me.
Cult.
Don't play cult with anyone.
Yeah, no, like there's some games I'll like. I want to play horror games, but I always ask like if you're literally describing the bodies of children, tell me now. I'd rather not play the game. I'd rather you not feel like a douchewafel later for setting off my PTSD because I told you I can't handle children dying. I can handle adults dying, no problem.
Right, but
I
there's
can
a
handle it.
difference between you saying I need to step out that session,
Yeah,
then the entire game needs to come to a halt. The other thing
yeah.
is that I don't refuse to use safety stuff because it's going to mess up my game. I
Mhm.
refuse to use safety stuff because I don't want players to feel like they have to tiptoe.
Yeah.
I I don't want them second guessing themselves. I want them to be able to become engrossed. I want them to be able to, really be engaged with the game. And honestly, if they're the kind of person that, goes around murdering children, that tells me a whole lot about them in real life too. So, that's a good fact to know.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, it's not that it's my game. And honestly, rarely have I ever. I find that players who feel constrained are more likely to do crazy stuff than players that if you just look at them and go, yeah, whatever. Um, the worst thing I think I ever had a player do um, was I had a game where they ended up in the Middle East. And one of the other players betrayed the group. And it was a female character. And he basically threw her to the Taliban. He's like, nope, you betrayed us. Like, so now you're, I'm leaving. Bye. Because she got the entire group killed except him, and he just got in and took off. And they ended up kidnapping her, and we all know what happened during that period of time. If you got,
Yeah.
but that like he didn't even do anything to her. It was like the Batman thing. Like,
Yeah. It's
I
kind of like
don't,
KG Beast.
I don't,
He let them locked in the room.
I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I tell people like Batman doesn't kill, but he kind of doesn't not kill either because like with KG Beast, he locked KG Beast in a thing and basically had no intentions of unlocking that door. He just walks away from it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you had somebody in your chat who said there's a difference between alluding to what could happen to someone versus graphic description. I mean, there are times I do like I run a lot of Numenera. And by sheer coincidence, well, no, actually I guess the first one was intentional. There's a thing in Numenera called the Iron Winds, and the Iron Winds are insane nanobites that are basically trying to fulfill whatever their original purpose was. And they basically fly around like tornadoes, and coming into contact with them is usually terrible. Well, in this particular case, the nanobots used to be like basically food replicators. And so everywhere this tornado touched down turned into meat. And they had to slog through this area as the everything turning to meat had rotted. And I got kind of graphic with the descriptions, but I think that's like the worst thing I've done.
Yeah. Well, devil's advocate here. When it comes to one thing I've noticed is that when it comes to horror-based tabletop, you have to be more descriptive. In fact, in the case of personification, I forget the actual writing terminology for it, but it's basically you're making an inanimate object seem human, so you're being more descriptive. For example, some people say the wind whispered into my ears, when in reality it's just the wind howling and you hear it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You have to be more detailed because you're trying to put your, and this is from a player perspective, all right, and someone who reads a lot, but you're trying to captivate your audience or your players. You're trying to create that vivid scenery, but in a way that there's no mistaking this place is creepy. So you set the mood, you set the scene, and the more detail you give, the more visual control you have of your characters, of your players. So that's what you kind of want in a game like Curse of Strahd or Call of Cthulhu or Vampires of the Masquerade, just to name a few off the top of my head, as opposed to D&D, regular, Faerun, Ghost Slay the
Yeah.
Dragon.
I do want to address something that Anvek said that kind of ties into that. There is a huge difference between that's the one. There's a huge difference between horror and gross. And unfortunately,
Yes.
most horror movies are now based on how disgusting they can be.
Oh yeah.
So Saw is a really good example. Saw has turned into a
Mm-hmm.
series that's just like, how disgusting can we make the traps? The original Saw, however, was very claustrophobic. It was almost entirely shot in one room. It's really a mental puzzle as much as anything else. The ankle scene at the end is kind of gross, but it's not. The entire movie isn't just a graphic gore fest. And if you have a graphic gore fest, it kind of, like, people aren't surprised anymore. They get bored.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't really do jump scares in the tabletop in the same way that you can in a movie. And even then, I mean, jump scares are just kind of shallow fear. The ability to do a horror game where they actually feel tense, where they're actually like, and that's why it's so important that they be invested in their characters. That they don't want their character to die.
Mm-hmm.
Or they don't just want to mess with the game. I want them invested. I want them tense. Um, I want them to feel fear and discomfort, not disgust. Like, that's the difference.
Exactly. Do you want to know one DM I will tell you it's a horrible horror DM? AI. Now I'm not against AI, but I tried single player with an AI.
We'd both be in trouble if you were.
Yep. But no, the thing is, I believe it. Pandora's box been open. It's a tool. It's here. It's going to be here to stay. If anyone wants to blame, if artists and writers and everyone wants to blame for it, I say blame yourselves for being so sucky that people came up with AI, because that's literally what started all this. But I tried playing a horror with AI, and it wasn't giving me like gore descriptions, but it's
AI is incredibly prudish too.
Yeah, it just wasn't. It would give me a child's horror, and I was like, no, give me. Oh, I'm okay with gore. I'm okay with blood. I'm okay with like, I mean, I played. I don't know if you play these games, but I played Phasmophobia and Demonologist. Both games actually, when I used to play them in the beginning, scared the shit out of me. Now I'm like desensitized to it, but when I play games and stuff like that where they scare me, but this one just did not do it for me. But like, it was the closest I could get, because a lot of the games could schedule for an actual horror game was either not in my time slot schedule, being a single parent, or they literally said we're like, someone would say, yeah, if you've seen Saw 6 or whatever, like this movie or that movie, I'm bringing, it's gonna be gory as fuck. I was like, okay, So it's not horror; it's just gore. Like there's a difference. One thing I like about, like, for example, one thing I like about paranormal horror stories and paranormal RPGs is you're praying, you're praying and hoping that you will survive the night. You're fighting this entity that you can't kill. You can't. There's almost no way you can stop this thing, but you're hoping that you can survive the night and dawn arrives. Like, dawn is safety. Until then, there is no safety. There's just hope for safety. Those make the best stories, in my view, for horror. And there's a couple of games I played that had one shots that did really well with that. And there was not any gore, but I kid you not, many of us, as soon as like a phone would ring or something, we were all jumping. These are grown adults jumping because of the way he told the story.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. There are different ways to be a good game master, and there are different ways. I look at playing role-playing games like reading. If you think you don't like it, it just means you haven't found the right one. But oh, so Anvek, I have this great Numenera adventure that takes place under the water and has intelligent octopuses. We'll see how well that goes over. I do think that there are certain types of people that make good game masters or better game masters than others. But I think that you can be a game master in different ways. So for instance, there are people, I have friends that play these very kind of light, they're kind of light games. There used to be a guy who would play.
Hold on, I'm sorry, Goat.
Sure.
I got a parenting duty I got to do, and there's no panelists here to kind of help make me seem like I'm still here.
That's all right. I can ramble.
Keep going. Keep carrying the
ramble.
conversation. I will have you on speaker, but my microphone will be off, and my avatar will be all over the place because I got to deal with a 9-year-old. I'm sorry.
Hello, Lavistro's kid. Now I've forgotten what I was saying. Darn it. I am very busy being entertained by Anvek's running and terror thing. Hey, I do want to go back to an earlier question because I kept meaning to go back to it and then getting sidetracked. Somebody said they were never going to get to play D&D. Now, first of all, I don't know why you'd want to play D&D anymore these days anyway. But I assume what you meant was you're never going to get to role play, and I was curious as why. It was Philip Morgan. So since I can, now monopolize the conversation, I'm really fascinated to know why. Though apparently the tentacles conversation is just going on in general. Someone says tentacles and my mind goes dirty. Yes, goat ramblings. I mean, do octopuses actually have tentacles, or like, do they count as tentacles? Squid have tentacles. What was I saying? I've totally forgotten at this point. Darn it. I guess I'm not going to be good at rambling because now I've forgotten what I was saying. Someone say tentacles and I look for helmets in my... No, these are literally just intelligent octopi. They're like... so the basis for Numenera is that you live 9 billion years in the future and humanity hit like its technological peak and then destroyed itself. And so you are medieval people living on the bones of super technology. But there is a section of Numenera under the ocean where the octopuses continued to develop and continue to have technology. They just never come up on land because humans suck. And so you can actually go under the ocean and by various means.
I do
and,
apologize. I'm back.
Find this intelligent group of octopuses.
Okay, wow. I come in, I look at the chat, and they're talking about tentacles. So I missed something.
I was talking about octopuses and intelligent octopuses in games.
Okay, yeah. I did hear a little bit, but I thought it was gonna be here. No, I had to step out from my studio, which surprising. My studio, I don't have a lot of sound things to deal with the reverb, but it's soundproof, meaning as soon as I step out the studio, I don't hear anything. And my son was having some problems because the cat decided to get stuck up on the counter, so I had to go get it. She was just like, the cat's meowing and she won't come down, and I was like, okay, and it's like, leave her there. It's like, but she's meowing, and I was like, okay. So I thought, pop my head real quick and see what's going on. No, she literally climbed. She jumped up on. She's the runt of the litter, so she's a small cat. She jumped up on the counter, then the refrigerator, then onto the cabinets, and was scared shitless because she looked down. I guess typical cat thing. Like, how do I get down from here? So I had to.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah, to satisfy my son and the cat, so that way I could come back to the podcast. I had to literally go physically grab the cat. I'm tall, so I went and grabbed the cat, and she scratched my arm. I'm okay, but like, that's what it's like. If the cat's meowing, put your earphones on. I'll deal with her when I deal with her next time.
Cats are like players. They get themselves into a situation, they can get themselves out.
Yeah, they'll figure it out ish, or they'll crit one and make a new character sheet. They got 9 lives.
Kitty heard the tentacle story and made for high ground. So I had asked Philip why he thought he was never going to get to play, but I didn't get an answer.
Say again. My headset's a little weird.
I had asked Philip why he thought he was never going to get to play, and I didn't. I see. Never mind. It hasn't made it to this chat yet, but it had made it into the actual stream chat. I don't know anyone where I live, and I don't think I'm smart enough to learn how to play. I forgot stuff a lot. So, as much as I don't like it as well as in person, Foundry is a very, very good method. It is, well, I mean, for players, it's free.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really good games on there. And there are very, very simple games. One of the ones I'm going to be running this weekend is called Urban Fairy, and it's literally just a funny game where your whole goal is to be ridiculous. And you literally roll a die to find out what kind of fairy you're going to be. Every fairy has its own stats. You can change one stat around if you choose to. And that's it. That's your character generation.
Awesome.
And then you just act silly.
That sounds like it's fun.
It's going to be a great convention game because literally it'll take 5 minutes to explain the game to everybody.
What did you call the game again?
It's called Urban Fairy.
Urban Fairy, because I'm writing that down because I might want to look into that.
It's one of the ones that popped into my head because the author sent me like 6 copies so I can like actually give the game away once I get done running it. So Tiny D10 is another one that's really quick to pick up. It's like D&D, but it's very watered down, so it's much simpler.
How do you feel about? I have some of their books, and I covered them once earlier this year. But how do you feel about Trollord Games and Castle Crusades? Have you ever tried that?
I have not. I have friends that have played it. In fact, I have friends that have owned it. I like their business ethics. I like the fact that they make stuff in the U.S. I like the fact that they, from everything I have heard, are really amazing to their staff. As well as they can be, and still keep the business running. I like the fact that they learned their lesson after COVID with the whole shipping thing and aren't now
Mhm.
crying because shipping is expensive. I
Yep.
like the fact that they are apparently single-handedly keeping several small businesses in business. The game itself is apparently very much it has been voted the most like old school D&D overall. But weirdly enough, I have not played Castles and Crusades. I'm more familiar with Amazing Adventures, which is because Jason was on my show and he wrote Amazing Adventures. He also owns his own business, which I am going to space on Elf Lair Games, I think.
Yeah. Yes.
I spaced there for a second. And his games also are, quite easy to pick up. I'm also doing those this weekend. They're very easy to pick up. They all run on the same system, but they cover a huge variety of genres. So if you like vampire, they have that. If you like fantasy, they have that. If you like sci-fi, it has that. And man, I just got the books in the mail today, and wow, is the quality really nice. I'm also supposed to give those away this weekend, but I already told him I'm going to be really tempted to keep one because they are gorgeous.
Yes, I love one thing I do love about TTRPGs is the art of the books. Like they do. Oh, look who's finally showed up. If he's here, his camera is loading. Welcome,
So,
Bo.
it's been great. I know we're just wrapping up, but
Oh, we got 15 more minutes before we do the shill your shit and outros. And
no,
Bo's
no, no.
here.
I was just joking about the fact that he was
Yeah.
showing up.
Hey, I want to
But
apologize to everybody for being a little late. I had to take my mother up to the hospital for a little while, and we just got back a little bit ago.
Yeah,
So,
that is definitely an acceptable.
hey, she's
yeah.
okay. She's okay, but I did have to get her up to the hospital.
She's doing okay now?
Yeah,
I
she's
know she
doing
said
all right.
she's okay, but all right.
Yeah.
It's yeah, shit, man. I'm glad she's doing fine. Hope everything went well. Ooh.
I don't do tabletop games though, so I don't think I would have added much to the conversation anyway. I haven't done a
we've
tabletop
really
role-playing game since I was like 20.
we have really wandered all over the place. I mean, you missed the octopus porn. You missed the
Oh, I wouldn't know much about that either.
Well, that's the beauty about tabletop is that it goes everywhere. No pun intended.
I made a comment about a game with intelligent octopuses, and apparently somebody immediately went somewhere dirty. So
Yeah.
somebody in the chat. So
Was it Val?
No. It's not
Who's
Val.
the first person that comes to mind when that happens?
Yeah. Oh, Bo, you should see. Like, I know you're probably sleeping around that time period, but you should see some of the VC chats we have when I'm streaming. I have to tell people, it's like I have to remind people, hey, I'm streaming YouTube, or if I do a Rumble exclusive, keep in mind that Rumble is also not friendly towards some of these conversations. I'm streaming. That is just now in my chat status. Like, yes, I'm live because, like, originally it was just be like the usual streaming where I just play games and that's it, right? There's no one with me unless I'm collabing or something. And then lately, we've been having these VC chats. So I start having VC chats. So you'll hear me talk while I'm playing a game with someone, or you'll hear a conversation as I'm playing the video game. And it gets views. But at the same time, we'll have some of the weirdest and funniest conversations ever. And Val tends to, well, like in the beginning, he always puts hail all and scout, it's Fuda time. Like there's some lore behind that, and it's not as degenerate, but it does involve Fuda. Basically, someone was trying to insult him because he's from Australia, and it was just come across as annoying to him. So he says, if you keep doing this, I'm gonna DM you Fuda pics. And he wouldn't stop doing it, so he DMs some Fuda pics. So now it's just a thing where he just says it's Fuda time because it's like, hey, someone noise, he's gonna start sending Fuda pics to them. It's funnier when you see it. Let's just put it that way.
I was gonna say, I feel like I have to use my imagination to figure out what that is.
Basically.
Oh no, it's okay. My imagination is probably better.
Yeah, I don't even know if I can say it on YouTube. Let's just put it that way. I'm still trying to learn what I can and can't say.
Yeah.
Are you monetized?
Not yet. I'm so
Then-
close.
Then there isn't much you can't say.
Yeah, but
Oh, well, I don't know
guarantee-
if you're close, they might go back and like look at stuff. So
yeah,
Look in the private stream chat.
I don't care about the monetization. I just want people to be able to have I just want to have emojis in my chat. That's all I want.
That's what it is.
That's all I want.
Real hot chicks. I'll put it that way. But you get the rest of the idea.
Yeah. But I did want to point this out there because for those who don't know, a lot of people started importing outsourcing. That's the right word. Outsourcing their books, their printing, everything overseas. And now with the tariff costs, it's going to make things expensive, which is the whole point of tariffs. I'm not political. Yes, I will admit I did vote for Trump, but that's because I figured he did a good job the last time, and I just want to vote for him. But I'm not one of those big, wear a red hat, full blown politics, because to me everything's the same to me.
They all
But yeah, pretty much. But I do agree with the tariffs idea, because if you want more jobs, you need to create jobs here, or rather, the government doesn't create jobs. It's more of they add incentives for companies to create jobs out here. So one of the incentives in this case is we're going to make imported goods more expensive, but if you create here in America, we're not going to, you're not worried about the tariffs. So like D&D, WotC, a lot of these companies print overseas because it was quote unquote cheaper. They don't have to worry about OSHA violations and all that stuff, child slavery laws, none of that stuff. So go figure that for yourselves if a company you are defending is a good company. But this was back in April. This is from Troll Lord Games, the Castle and Crusades thing, and they point out about the tariffs. Now I'm not going to read the whole thing because some of y'all might follow, for example, Diversity and Dragons, which I did. He covered this, but he points out here the short answer: we make our products here in the U.S. and have for decades. The current uncertainty, much like COVID pandemic, will have very little impact on our pricing. I do not anticipate any price increases. I do not anticipate delayed output. We will not have any difficulty fulfilling any crowdfunding campaigns, direct-to-consumer orders, distributor orders, Amazon, or other orders. The only active I can see is a delay in print time from 4 to 12 weeks. This last will be the result of publishers shifting their printing from overseas to US-based printers, causing a log jam. So, yeah, I think it was a very smart business move to keep it in the USA. I will say that. Also, I don't know if it's. I believe Jason is also a veteran. I know.
I know the owners are. I don't know.
Yeah, the owners are. That's why I always say it's a veteran-owned business. If you support the veterans and you play TTRPGs and you don't play Castles Crusades, I mean, do you really? I always say, do you really support the vets? But then again, I also say that when Bo's on here, I was like, if you say you support the vets and you like gaming streams and you're not watching Vet Gamer for Seafish, can you really say you're supporting the vets? I never mentioned myself, even though I am a vet. But that's one thing I like about it. They keep as much as they can in America. And if I recall, it was also the last company Gary Gygax went to before he passed away. So his last, I think it's still in print with them. His last.
So I don't know if it was them, but I know that they recently, in fact, today they posted on Twitter, they have a land or they had a 5e supplement that was written by Ernie Gygax about a city named after his dad, and they apparently just they've been out of print for a while, and they apparently just found a case of them, and so when they made the post, they said we literally have 33 of these, and then they will never be available again because Ernie is now gone too, so they can't get permission to redo them, and I think they're not doing. They basically broke all ties with 5e in every way, shape, and form once the OGL thing happened. So they used to do some stuff that was, you could use with 5e, and they won't do it anymore.
Yeah, a lot of people are dying. Did you know Pathfinder came with their own license after that?
Oh yeah, there were several companies that did that. I think Monty Cook ended up, they used to do some stuff that was kind of good for either the Cypher system or 5e, and I don't think they do it anymore.
Yeah, and Monty Cook actually, but I think he was last I read on him, he was still in he was still part of WotC at the time, and he was trying to say that all editions are canon for that edition, which he was trying to appease everybody, but at the same time, he ended up pissing off everybody because everybody wanted their edition to be the official canon. But he wrote, but it was just pretty like he wrote the I have it here. Hold on. Yeah, he wrote the Book of Vile Darkness, one of the OG 3.E books. But if you read that one, you kind of the Monty Cook now and the Monkey Cook then are two different people. I swear to God, if you read that thing, you read his tweet, you won't believe it's the same Monty Cook.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings. This is one of those cases where I consider this a separate the art from the artist. Monty Cook was the first one to come up with a safety checklist, and that irritates the crap out of me.
Yeah.
But the fact is, the Cypher system is great.
It is.
It's very good. I love Numenera. So I love their work. I just don't necessarily love their behind the scenes stuff. And I backed. What did I back? I backed their Old Gods of the Appalachia horror campaign. Before I ever listened to the podcast, and then I listened to the podcast and went, I don't really like this. I hope the game is better. And it was not. So I think it could be made better with a lot of house ruling, but it's got issues. But yeah, Cypher system's great. Numenera is great. The Strange, I think it's called, is great. And I've heard, I can't remember what the new one is called. I've heard that's really good. So I just had bad taste and backed exactly the wrong one. But
that brings up an excellent segue to another.
The Lost City of Gaxmore. It's 50% off.
Yeah.
There were only,
by the way,
as of 6 hours ago, there were only 33 copies left.
Yeah. By the way, I did cover this in a video earlier this year. I think it's still at this price. But if you're interested in playing Castles of Crusades and you can't afford a book, the PDF copy is literally free for Castles and Crusades. I covered it earlier this month, and I think it still is. They were actually giving that away free, and
they always give away the older editions in the hopes that you will like it well enough to get the newer editions.
Which I think is a great sales. To me personally, I think it's a great sales strategy. But I wanted to segue to this, but before I do, since we're talking about systems, I'm probably saying this wrong, but mind you, I didn't have a strong tabletop community in my childhood, so don't come after me if I say this wrong. But how do you feel about THAC0?
I understand why it was the first thing to go. I understand. I have issues with 5e, but the actual system is not necessarily one of them. I think it gets I think the classes and the races and all the nonsense, but the actual running of the game, the actual skill checks, the actual everything else, I think is much more streamlined. I think they did a much better job. Thaco was one of those unnecessarily complicated things that at the time made a lot of sense, but nowadays I understand why it went away. I don't necessarily object to it. Part of it is that there used to be the Thaco chart, and most of the people I played with just memorized it.
Yeah.
I have dyscalculia. It is not possible for me to memorize a chart full of numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I struggled. I know a lot of other people who don't have dyscalculia. They're just not great with math. And I don't know. They objected to the fact that they had to have a chart every freaking, and that means every single person has to have a book, or you're constantly passing the book around to, figure out whether or not you hit things.
Yeah.
So it was really unnecessarily complicated. But again, for the time, I don't think it was a terrible first draft.
No.
But it was a first draft.
Yeah, they kept it around. So if I remember correctly, Deco was part of the OG D&D, not first edition, but part of the original D&D from the 70s. Then they carried it over, improved in it with advanced D&D 1E.
Oh, I didn't
and
find it that
2E.
difficult when I played. I mean, you told them what the armor class of the creature was they were fighting or being, and then based on their bonuses and items and all that stuff, there was a base, to hit armor class 0, and then you just figured out from there. Like if they had armor class 3 and your Thaco was 14, then it would actually be an 11 to hit if their armor class was 3. So,
Yeah,
and
but
if you started getting in the negative, then it becomes a higher number to hit.
once again,
That's
though,
the
when
way I did it.
well, and that's the correct way to do it. But the problem is that like when my 13s constantly became 15s in my head, or 15s became 18s, or 12s became 15s, like that's how I see numbers. I literally can't track what the numbers are in any given moment. So one of the reasons I like Numenera so much is that it runs almost entirely on a sentence, not on numbers. So it works much better for me. I like Shadow Dark a lot because it took all the things I liked about the old edition but got rid of the Thaco. I think I've heard it referred to as 5e light.
If I remember correctly, it was like I remember hearing about it. I'm trying TBI's block doing a freaking lag on my brain, but if I remember correctly, when it came out on its Kickstarter, was it Kickstarter? It was starting with. Either way, when it came out, it received a widespread reception. People were promoting that game, like the community, not like companies, but community was promoting this game. Everyone was talking about this OSR game.
They still are. They just did a Kickstarter for not a new edition, but a new addition. So basically, they've doubled the size of the world, and they wanted $50,000, and they made $2.4 million.
I have yet to get the book, but I'm going to share this for anyone. I'm going to share the link for people as well if people are interested. But this is what I believe we're talking about. Yeah, it's the Arcane Library. So yeah, they have a different cover on this. But this is the drive-through RPG. You can get a lot of resources, a lot of games, including the RPG Pundit, who's anti-woke. He actually has a forum, I believe, where he lists all the companies that are not doing a modern audience thing. So if you're like, I want to play the Dungeons and Dragons, but I don't want to deal with this, well, there's alternatives. I tried getting a hold of him to see if he'd come on, but he's busy. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, no, Shadowdark. I think even someone told me that it made it was considered product of the year or something like that because of all the sales and stuff. But I mean, you like I do see a lot of the TSR references in here. Like I do remember I had to go to my mom's house to pull out my old TSR manual books, but the artwork looks very similar.
Well, they were trying to go back to really old school stuff.
Mhm.
And so they wanted an old school feel and old school artwork. And they did that very intentionally.
I know this. This is not hand drawn. I know this. This is the resource online. I forget the name of it. This the Lost Little map. But no, I'm not saying that they stole it from the map. I'm saying they made the map for that resource. I just can't remember the name of it. But yeah, it's
But she used to work for WotC, and she also broke from
Mhm.
them when they got nonsensy.
And she's not the only one.
There are a
So
lot of people. There are a lot of people breaking now.
Yeah, so let me see if I can actually do it this way. Between leak. You know about Critical Role, right?
Yeah, I don't think they did great things for the gaming world.
No, so how do you feel about them? This is from the Nerdist. I don't like to use Kotaku because Kotaku's gonna Kotaku. But Critical Role snags 2 former Dungeons and Dragon leads for their team. There's no doubt that Critical Role and Dungeons and Dragon will always be intricately linked. Critical Role rose to fame thanks to its funny, compelling, and deeply narrative Dungeons and Dragons actual play campaign videos. But I'm skipping down. Just I hate when they cover everything. I have to zoom it in because I like you. I actually have bad eyes. So, but Travis Williams, CEO and co-founder of Critical Role, shares a following about the new Dungeons and Dragons additions to the team. Jeremy and Chris are visionaries. They guided much of this golden age of TTRPG design and philosophy, helping shape the way we play, connect, and imagine together. The creativity, passion, and heart will only elevate everything we do at 13 Press, and we couldn't be more excited for what this means for the critters and stories we continue to tell. Perkins and Crawford are both former leads in the world of Dungeons and Dragons and worked as game architect and lead designer for Dungeons and Dragons until very recently. Perkins left Wizards of the Coast in May, whereas Crawford left in April. Perkins had worked in Dungeons and Dragons for 28 years and Crawford for 18 years at the time of their departure. And now we know what they left Dungeons and Dragons behind for Critical Role. So, how do you
I
feel
think
about that?
I mean, I don't care. People leave companies all the time.
Mhm.
I think they realize that Critical Role is the next hot new thing. But I think there was kind of I mean, and again, this is just a personal opinion. I think
Mhm.
there was a snowball effect. I think WotC did a lot of the trying to make everybody happy and make everybody feel included and yada yada yada. The gaming
Yeah.
area needs less white men. But I also think that Critical Role gave people this idea that role playing was this constantly active, cinematic, everyone's the main character. Like, people stopped being heroes in a game that was supposed to be about heroes. They want to be the main character, they don't want to be the hero.
Exactly.
NPCs are now just, it's like a video game. You go to the NPCs to get quests. And other
Mhm.
than that, you never interact with them. You don't treat them like they're actual, they actually have their own motivations. And part of good role playing is that you treat the world around you like it's real. And I think they taught people, there was this influx of new gaming and new gamers. And I think they taught people to play role playing games like they were video games or like they were improv stage performances. And
Yeah, that's
not everyone is not everyone is good at improv. Not everyone is that outgoing. Not every game session is going to be, constantly engaging and active. I have a hard time believing most of their stuff wasn't scripted because, like, unless that's what you do, and that is what they do. But even without what you do, even like on something like Whose Line Is It Anyway, there would be jokes that didn't land.
Yeah.
Because it was an improv show, and like none of the stuff they ever didn't land. And that's just not how actual games run. And I think it gave, like I said, it's not that I necessarily have an issue with the system for 5e, but I have an issue with the background stuff, and I've developed an issue with the players because they all think that all role playing is going to be like Critical Role, and it's just not. It's not constantly going to be funny and adventurous, and you're not constantly going to be the center of the story, and sometimes things are going to go badly for you. Like sometimes characters die.
Exactly. I agree with that 100%. Like I like the story of that they would produce in there, but I didn't like it per se because people would complain to me, and I'm not a DM, right? I would be a player, and I'm not even a seasoned player. I'm about an avid player at best. But I would have people after their sessions who would text me like, I can't believe our DM is going to be like do this, and I was like, well, where do you get that idea? Well, like Matt Mercer. I was like, not every DM is going to be like Matt Mercer, for one, and number two, when they streamed it, a lot of times they had actors, like actual actors playing the game, and you know how actors and Hollywood actors are. They all have that main character syndrome. They're narcissistic as fuck. We know this about Hollywood. This is no secret. It's been going around
Well, but the
as a
issue
common
is that
knowledge.
the issue is they're not playing games; they're performing.
Yes, exactly. That's the thing. They're narcissists. They're trying to say, okay, I'm on this show. I'm going to show you on YouTube how good of an actor I am because I'm probably not getting enough work right now. They're always constantly thinking about their next job.
Well, but I mean that became their job. Their job was entertainment, not gaming.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, somebody told me once, the Real Life Fake Wizard said, gaming is great, but watching someone game is incredibly boring. They had to figure out how to take something that was designed to be done and make it engaging enough for people to watch. The problem is that the watchers then took that and tried to make every game into that.
Exactly. You said it better than I did. I need to read more books, I guess. But I did want to cover.
I suck with numbers. I'm good with words.
Yes. I did want to cover because I feel bad we haven't done it, but I did want to cover if you don't mind, we extend the time a little bit if you're okay with it. I wanted to cover your slice of dice. If I
thought you were going to ask me about pineapple on pizza again.
No, I think we answered that one.
No, you asked me and I didn't answer it. I didn't get that far. The answer is I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I've never had it, but I don't like hot pineapple, so I probably wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
I like pineapple, but not.
I like to add certain Easter egg or memes. Like, for example, when we talk video games, the old Gen consoles wars was Sonic versus Mario. So I'll ask people, who's better, Sonic or Mario? And so I asked that meme one because the meme does pineapples go on pizza, right? So that's why I do that, to add a little bit of something funny in the thing, because sometimes I'll get too serious or things will get too dry. So
Mario will always be better.
And that was the Eclectic Goat, everybody. She is now banned from the channel because Sonic was awesome.
Mario had better music and more stuff to do. Sonic's just running around collecting rings.
Well,
I was in the Contra.
Yeah, of course you were.
For a long time.
Let's talk about your slice of dice. Now, I usually lurk. But if I remember, you have a lot of videos where you would cover certain TTRPGs, you would cover minifigs, you'd have little short segments, and you used to do a stream campaign. Right now, you said you're taking a break to do movies. So what started Slice of Dice, and why'd you name it that? And
Well, slice
yeah.
and dice, pizza and gaming goes together. Like
Oh, yeah.
that's they're just kind of a requirement. Like you have to have pizza and gaming. So it became Slice and Dice. I resisted live streaming for a really long time. The whole idea made me very nervous. So my real world is that I edit and I write research papers, and both of those tasks involve a lot of planning ahead and being very organized. And I don't do improv well. I don't like to talk without thinking about what I'm going to say first. And so the idea of live streaming kind of made me a little nervous, but I was eventually talked into this because I was convinced that I was going to need watch hours, which I still didn't get. So I am nowhere near monetization.
Oh.
And it was really weird. Like YouTube would keep saying like, oh yeah, now you have, I think, well, what is it? You need 5. I can't remember how many watch hours it was. Anyway, it would say I was 2/3 of the way there, and then the next day, all of a sudden, I would be back down to like, oh, you have like 500 watch or 200 watch hours or whatever it was. But so I decided I was going to do this show. I already wanted to do something about promoting independent authors because I edit for independent authors. And I love gaming. And so there were, cases where I was running into people that had independent TTRPGs. And I was like, oh, well, people are getting kind of sick of WotC. Everyone's looking for other alternatives. Not everyone wants to go to Pathfinder. It would be fun to have some people on and just talk a little bit about games that are underrepresented. Smaller companies that have great games that, nobody's ever heard of. Toon is great. Paranoia is great. Palladium, if you have the patience to wade through the crunchiness, is great. But everybody hears about Dungeons and Dragons, and that's all anyone ever hears. Occasionally Pathfinder, occasionally Call of Cthulhu. But other than those 3, like that's what everyone knows. So I decided I'd start this stream, and I didn't expect it to last very long. And then somebody said, well, I have a game that I made. Like, can I present it? I was like, sure. And then more and more of the show became like me finding these really awesome games from people who could write games, but then had no idea what to do with them afterwards. And so first there was a channel, and then there was a Discord, and and now I'm going to spend the weekend running indie games at a convention. And we're on hiatus because I think what happened is there were so many good games so early on, everyone spent all their money and went broke.
Yeah, people are hungry for good games.
And I think it just got to the point where people were like, I can't watch this show anymore because I'm spending all my money on games. I need to, build my savings back up again. And so there was, there was some like real life stuff too. And I just decided it would be probably a good idea to take a little time off, get people, I understand that I love sitting around listening to 3 people talk about their indie game for 2 hours, but that can get, it's like watching a role-playing game. It can get old after a while.
In my defense, I'm gonna bring that up because I know you mentioned the Real Life Gaming Wizard or Real Life Fake Wizard said this. But I'm in reverse when it comes to your monetization. I believe you have the subs, you don't have the view hours.
Correct.
I am in reverse. I have over 10K watch hours, and not
you play video games, right?
Yeah, I play video games. I talk about I don't talk about like, for example, if I talk politics in gaming, like I'll talk about it occasionally, right? There's everyone's talking about that. Smash JT, Hypnotic, Geeks and Gamers, Nerd Rock, they're all talking about, you know, the politics and the culture war, right? No one's talking about. I kind of do what you do, but with video games. I cover indie video games. I try to cover TTRPGs, whatever I can find that gives people an option. And but my gaming streams themselves tend to do better than anything else that people actually watch. And I get like, I start off with 5-10 views, but since I stream it every day, right? I went with this mentality of, regardless if I have 100 watchers or 0, I'm still going to stream this game. I'm still going to be out there, so people can, you know, see that there's another game out there. You know, there's something for them, and I'll play it literally until I beat the game or 100% it, whatever.
Yeah, Yarnwitch did the same thing. She started a channel long after I did, but she was streaming video games every single day for 3 hours, like 6 days out of 7 a week.
Oh, I've done more than that.
Like,
I would
I
stream every
can't.
day for like 5 hours.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's taken to doing some evening games now and stuff like that too. But she blew through her watch hours in no time.
Mhm.
I just don't have that kind of time. I mean, I
Yeah.
have editing deadlines, I have writing deadlines, I have over 100 animals that currently I'm worried about getting heat stroke.
Exactly.
And I just and I don't, like I said, I don't play a ton of video games, and I don't.
Mhm.
When I do play, it tends to be fairly short spurts, and I tend
Mhm.
to play all older games that nobody's going to care about watching.
Well, have you heard of
You know,
Sonya?
the most modern thing I've played recently, I think, is Diablo 3. So
Okay, there's a couple people in my inner circle, all right, that you would like to meet. Sonia Lisette is the person who's responsible for creating Lavistro, the Dragon of Cyberspace. The reason I'm saying that is I don't know if you know the guy, but Hypnotic, I'm one of his mods.
Mhm.
And he modded me because Sonia Lisette told him to mod me. Normally, I'm just a lurker that occasionally will pop in and do super chats, right? I'll just do a super chat here and there to support content creators. After that, I ended up becoming Lavistro, but she's a retro gamer. She only streams Mario and Sonic, like the classics, going all the way up to the 90s. And she gets viewers. And then you got the Goon Room, Mikey Set. He's a good friend of mine. And we didn't start out that way. I actually banned him, and that's how we became friends. That's the story. But he streamed Diablo 2 and got a lot of viewers. I mean, you'd be surprised. People would actually do want to see retro gaming. It's like there's literally a niche for that. But when I tell people, when people say they're like the real life fake wizard said it, like you were saying, and then there's a couple others like streaming video games doesn't, you know, do well. I'm like, actually, I stream video games.
No. He said they're streaming TTRPGs.
Oh, well, even then, because like I still watch. I don't interact with the chat much because I want to hear the story. Sometimes I have tinnitus in one ear, so TTRPG streams. And it used to be Geeks and Gamers Tabletop before they shut down. That did my fix since the pandemic, but I actually enjoyed my time in with watching those streams. And there's quite a few people that still do it. It's a small niche audience. Right.
Yeah, it's a niche audience, but it's very hard to keep people engaged because it can be boring. I mean, it's like the Dr. Demento joke about, you know, half the game is people yelling about who wants a Mountain Dew.
Pretty much. But no, I always believe that if you're going to, like with TTRPG, you're not going to grow fast. I will agree with that. But you'll get some of the most loyal fans that cover it. And I would definitely love to see you keep up with news of other TTRPGs because I'm a single parent. I don't have it as we established here on the podcast an extensive background of TTRPGs as you have. Right, you've been DMing since college. You've been doing this for a while, and
I'm
you mentioned
old.
some TP. Oh, I don't think we're that too far apart. Actually, we'll just leave it at
Both of
that.
y'all are older than I am.
There's an
I noticed
there
she
is a
didn't really believe that.
the slice and dice group. I think I was very frequently the oldest person there. I was
Yeah.
constantly having to go, yeah, I have been gaming. I literally had one guy on, Barlow Keep was presenting let's see, he's been on twice. He did
I think I've seen
Crown
one of
and
those.
he did what? Crown and
Crown and
shoot, let's see. Crown and Skull. And
Yeah.
then he's also developing his own game called The Red Mark. And we get talking backstage about our gaming history and everything else. And I said, you're a real great GM. You've kind of inspired me to like freshen up my own routine a little. And we get talking about it, and I mentioned I'd been gaming for 35 years, and he's like, he just blurted out, he's like, "Oh my God, you've been gaming longer than I've been alive."
Yeah, I think I saw that.
I was like,
I think it was a different podcast.
oh, I feel so old now.
I picked
I
up.
think I think it may have turned out I actually have been DMing longer than he'd been alive.
I picked up Dungeons and Dragons, and they boxed the red boxed basic edition set many years ago before the hardcover books were even out.
Yep.
That's how long. And I had done through my teenage years up till I left for the Air Force and stuff. There weren't too many people doing it when I was in the military doing RPG tabletop role playing games and stuff. So kind of phased out of it in my 20s and just never got back into it.
It's a shame. It
couldn't
really
really
has
advanced.
Couldn't
really find people that would sit down and do it.
Yeah, it really has advanced though. As much as I think 5e has made and Critical Role made for bad players, there have been enough interest, especially now that people are kind of looking away from WotC at other things. Man, some of the reason I keep pushing the indie stuff is that some of the games that are coming out that aren't getting noticed are so good.
Well, do you know the life expectancy of corporations?
I mean, I know restaurants are something like 3 years or 3 years
No, I'm
before
talking
they
about
go under.
corporations, not
Yeah,
businesses. Corporations.
yeah. Overall, I don't know. No.
There's a communist. I wish I bookmark. I usually bookmark everything, and especially when I was in the army. And so you'll understand where I get my knowledge. When I was in the army, we had this thing called CQ, charge of quarters. Right, you get to watch barracks, and you're doing it for 24 hours. And so to keep myself awake, I would have a laptop. But our sergeant major had this rule of no video games, no this or that. So it's only to better yourself. So I would literally go read articles and research things to keep myself awake for 24 hours. And one of the things I found was an economist who pointed out that the life expectancy of a corporation is usually about 40 years. The average corporation will live about 40 years. WotC is one of those corporations. WotC bought the rights to D&D from TSR or something like that, if I remember correctly, in the 90s.
Problem is that WotC doesn't actually exist anymore. WotC is just a subcategory to Hasbro. And that's one of the reasons I didn't really have an answer for you, is because, I mean, WotC still exists in name, but realistically, it's not WotC anymore. They've been bought out by somebody else. The electric company in my state, is called Central Maine Power, but they were bought out years ago by a company in New York. They didn't change the name. And then they were bought out by a company in Spain.
Yeah.
So Central Maine Power doesn't really exist, but everyone still calls it Central Maine Power, even though they're now a Spanish company.
Yeah, they usually get bought out or they shut down or something happens in 40 years. And it's usually because the original creators of the company aren't around anymore. So I told people this, and I believe it's the same with TTRPGs. Yeah, D&D has gotten the way of the dodo, so to speak. But it's too big to fail. It's iconic. It's almost like baseball and apple pie when it comes to Americans. It's literally people literally say it's the greatest. When they make their own games that they're using the D20 system, they can't say D&D, but they'll say based off the world's greatest TTRPG or the world's famous TTRPG. That's Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I got to the
But
point where I would tell people on Slice and Dice, don't tell me how your game is similar to D&D because I don't care. Tell me how it's
yeah,
different.
well, no, they kind of had to say something like that from understanding the original OGL because of they're using the D20 system. So or something from it, like it's been a while since I
Which
read
is
it.
ridiculous. There were D20 games long before 5e came into
Yeah,
existence.
but they're using
But
the D20 system. But because now they say, I don't know how they managed to do this, but when they created the D20 system, they managed to make it so that if you say D20, people are automatically assume you're talking about the D20 system, even if you're not using the D20 system. Okay, so there are some out there like for that don't round up, they'll round down. Like D&D rounds up, if I remember correctly, or is it the reverse? I've been on D&D hiatus for a while. I'm actually coming back, but
I'm sorry.
I kind of had to. But D&D, I think it's round up to the nearest whole number. There's some that round down. There are some that go this way or that way. They all use the same mechanic that D&D uses, which is the D20. But it's like,
Yeah, there's a difference between a D20 and the D20 system.
yeah,
And there's a specific graphic
yeah,
that goes with, the 5e D20 system. That, like, if you look at an early edition of Cult, for instance, that was the original D20 system.
mm-hmm.
But it's not what people think of when they think. It's like Google. When somebody
Yeah.
says, I'll Google it, they aren't necessarily using Google. We just now think of Google as being, it's a verb now.
Yeah, it's become the verb. But yeah, but now WotC seems to go after you if you say you're using a D20 system and you don't mean the D20 system. You mean just a D20 system.
Well, except that all these games are specifically talking about their D. That's why they say 5e compatible,
Because they kind of have to. Because for some reason, and I was listening to a podcast years ago, but they were mentioning how WotC literally made it to where it used to be back in 3.5, you didn't have to worry about it. But then when 4E came out, WotC started coming after anybody that was making D20 games and said that they were a D20 system.
I think that's when they got bought out.
Yeah, I think it was when Hasbro came in, but still. But like I said, the original WotC that people loved is gone. It's been gone when Hasbro bought them out. It's not to say that WotC was always good, but compared to WotC now, it's not the same WotC.
WotC started with Magic the Gathering, and I hated Magic the Gathering from the beginning. So.
Oh yeah, no, I tried. I wasn't an avid player of Magic, but I played up until Planeswalker, the Planeswalker series. But when they added the Magic the Gathering to 5e, don't get me wrong, I liked some of the backgrounds for the mechanics portion because it especially like Wither and Bloom mechanic, you can take life and give it to someone else. So it's like one of the few healing spells for wizards. But other than that, I hated the Strix campaign in Wither and Bloom. I really I hated Magic in general, and then I hated it when they integrated it to D&D. Everything they're doing has to go to D&D now. And I'm like,
WotC's first action before they ever bought TSR was to sue out of business every other collectible card game by taking some judge that didn't know what a collectible card game was and convincing him to put a copyright on the entire basis of collectible card games, despite the fact that there were dozens of other ones out there. So Magic was not the best. It was not even the most popular. They were just the most litigious. and they got everyone
Exactly.
else. They got everyone else run out of the building. And so when they
Mhm.
bought out TSR, um, one of the first things they did was start suing or buying out other role playing games. Slay Industries, which is one of my favorites, was an
Mhm.
early game. It was not competing with D&D. It was a totally different genre, but it was doing pretty well. So they bought it out and shut it down.
Yep.
So I was not at all surprised when they got around to going, "Hey, we've made as much money as we can off your labor, so now you're not allowed to do it anymore."
Yeah, and even though he got bought out, I still see that part of WotC coming up, like with the OSR issue, not OSR, OGL issue.
OGL, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
But I mean, that's exactly what they're doing, though, is like they literally said, "Hey, here's a website. Take all of your homebrews and your third-party content, put it on there. You can make money off it, and we'll only take 50%." They got a ton of people into gaming. They made a ton of money off other people's work. They didn't pay anyone benefits. They didn't have to like put them on the payroll. They made millions. And when that
Mhm.
stopped working and drive through RPG became a thing and people had other resources to market their work, that's when they tried to shut the OGL down. Now
I
that
remember
we have milked you as dry as we can, how did this become a Wizards of the Coast stream?
I did not mean for it to be that way. I mean,
Happens all the time though, because once
yeah,
again, it's really
I'm just
it's
chilling because I don't do much tabletop, so I'm just listening.
but it's also good to
we just need to
mention
find you
Wizard of the
better tabletop games. That's all.
yeah. It's always good to mention Wizard of Tabletop because then it's like, okay, we're mentioning the sins of the Ghosts of Winter's Past, whatever. In this case, with Wizard of the Coast, but now that you know how horrible they are, for example, sending the Pinkertons because someone they gave the trading card games to
Yeah, they
someone.
screwed up and they sent the Pinkersons to someone's
Yeah,
house.
they screwed up and they sent it to someone else's house. Pinkertons, mercenaries, hired guns. Literally, a corporation does that straight from a movie. Like literally, this is like the plot of a freaking movie. But they do that. So now that you know what they do, let's recommend some games you would like. Speaking of which, I think we're over time. And I do love the conversation. I wish we could go more, but I do have parenting duties, and I know you have a busy schedule as well. Um,
Yeah, I got to attend the
so
critters now that it's cool enough to do so.
yes. Before we do, I think I'm gonna just go ahead and say we've recommended games because you mentioned a lot of good games. I mentioned
Cult is
some.
great.
Even
Yeah, Cult is great. Slay Industries is great. Numenera is great. Shadow of the Demon Lord is amazing. If Shadow of the Demon Lord, in my opinion, is the best game to learn to roleplay or to get back into role playing. It's fabulous and it's very simple. There are a lot of small games. There are, if you like funny games, Toon is good. Paranoia is good. Urban Fairy, which I just read, is really funny. If you like sci-fi, I'm a great fan of Shadowrun Second Edition. And Slay Industries is also kind of a horror slash sci-fi. That's most of the basic genres. So
yes, but and I also mentioned Castle Crusades and Troll Lord games. I would
yeah, I haven't read
definitely
it, so I don't feel like I can recommend the company, but I don't feel like I can recommend the game.
when I recommend games is games that we haven't played but we find interesting. So like I read the mechanics of Troll War games. I actually have the 7th edition book and I think the 5th edition. The
Yeah.
5th edition I have as a hard copy. But I've never got to play the game. This is kind of like the story of my life with TTRPGs. I never get to play it, and then when years later I get to play it. So I probably won't be able to play Troll Lord games until I'm like 800 years old or something. I'll be an old man by that time period. But I will recommend if you want to get into TTRPGs and you can't afford all the books or don't have space for it, or maybe you're going to end up playing online because we do have a digital DM coming on Saturday. My DM, Brian the Dungeon Master. Drive Through RPG is a great source. You can even get some of the older modules from D&D in there, some of the older editions of other games. It's just a great around source. And so if you want to try it out, there's that. Also,
Can I
you
can I put a link in the private?
Yeah, you can put it in chat and I'll highlight it. Whatever you want to do.
I can't put it in chat because I'm not.
Oh, hold on. I can fix that. I thought I fixed
Oh.
that. Hold on. Because everyone, I told you this before.
Maybe I can. I just assumed I couldn't, but.
Hold on. No, I didn't. Now you're rich. And you got the standard moderator rich to share your stuff. So if you ever pop on my stream, which is rare, like you got your own thing, but if you ever pop on, you want to announce something, you've earned that right because you've been on this stream. So now you should be able to post a link.
Every time you're streaming, you're streaming video games. And again, I have terrible eyesight and I have a really hard time watching people play games. And I don't usually know when you're doing this show. This show I would love to watch more frequently, but
Dragoncast, we do it literally 5 p.m. on Saturdays. 5 p.m.
that's
Central.
why, because I'm electronic free on Saturdays. That's the issue.
Yes.
Well, I'll watch the backlogs. Anyway,
this will also be on a playlist, so you can see it there.
TD10 is a simplified version of D&D, and all of the books are free. Like everything, the adventures, the modules, the editions, it's all free.
Yes,
and it's simple enough to introduce kids. It's great.
Yeah, and see, there's a lot of resources out there if you want to get into TTRPGs. So,
and I teach new gamers.
Exactly. There you go. She teaches new gamers. She also has little bites. She doesn't just have live. She also has little bite-sized videos. Slice of RPG.
Yes, my smaller slices, the slice and dice minis.
Now that since we covered that, since we covered a lot of the types of games we'd recommend, and we had a big conversation about TTRPGs, which I enjoyed. It's that time of the year or that time of the day where people come into Dragoncast as a special guest, humor my antics until they can rise and take over the stream in a hostile takeover to...
I totally missed that whole thing. Am I supposed to be plugging my stuff? Is that the idea? Oop, everybody's gone away. I guess I'm supposed to be plugging my stuff. So I am the Eclectic Goat. You can find me on YouTube and Discord under the Eclectic Goat. I just yesterday put out my discussion and history of zombie movies video. And on the 2nd of the month, we are going to be starting shows you've never seen. We're going to be watching a show called Daybreak, which is like if a cop show had a baby with Groundhog Day. It's very strange and it's very good. But nobody ever watched it, so. I
guess you can't hear me. I was saying this is like up to 15 minutes to treat this as this was your chance, so people have a taste of how you stream.
Oh, yep. Couldn't hear a thing you were saying. That's pretty much it, though. Like I said, I have the Discord channel. All of the people that were originally on Slice and Dice are now in the Discord. So if you have questions about independent gaming, I also do editing. So anyone who is a writer or interested in developing a TTRPG, I do editing for that. And in the real world, I raise goats and write about goats. And that is pretty much all I have to say. There's absolutely no way I'm keeping this up for 15 minutes.
Oh, that's good. Everyone seems to think it's just shill your shit as in hawk your wares. Could you have wares if you have coin? I tried to do something unique.
Because that's the normal. The breakdown you gave me said it was a plug your shits thing. So
yeah, well, I thought I gave more. I guess because I was in a rush. Like when we were talking, I was in a rush. You were in a rush. You were busy. I was trying not to take too much of your time. Well, you saw the schedule. It's a paragraph. And we don't go on schedule all the time, but it's So you have. I always try to give that courtesy of, here's what we're aiming for. So that way, if you're uncomfortable with anything, because I try to get some people might not want to talk about certain things or this or that, it lets them know what's going on so they can walk out of it. But I try to be different where. But I say shill your shit. It doesn't just means I'm on this channel. Come watch me. It's also,
I mean, I'm
hi,
far more.
just took this is why I say it's a hostile taking over my channel. You have 15 minutes where you treat this channel as your channel. I want to talk about the movies I'm doing. And this is a zombie film that I do. Let's talk about this. It just gives a bite-sized taste of your channel.
Yeah, but most of my channel involves me letting other people shill their stuff. So that's pretty much what I do normally.
Yeah,
Here's
but
my channel. Use it. Talk about your
but
stuff.
you're good. Just future reference in case you're going back to do TTRPGs and we want to have you on, or you ever want to come on. That's another thing. If you ever happen to stop by and watching us on Dragoncast, and you're like, "Hey, Lavistro, I want to come on at this with you on this time. Could you add me in there?" You have that right to ask now. Says you've been on this thing, so you're always welcome back. And also, my Discord will be announcing whenever you post a video or go live under the Dragons Alliance. So basically, anyone that's been on this show, we add their channel to the news, and eventually it's going to get too big. I'm going to have to worry about that later. But I always try to, help out our community because it's
We all grow together.
TTRPGs need love too.
Yep, we all grow together.
But
yeah, but honestly though, most of the things I do that don't involve letting other people shill their stuff would take so long. I mean, if I come on here and in the 15 minutes I make the comment, the Harry Potter movie sucked, like there's another 3 hours because everyone in your chat is going to explode.
that's fine.
Because I also do hashtag the book is better.
I like the book, so don't get me wrong, but here's a bad thing. As much as I enjoy Harry Potter, I will say I know 100% that it was plagiarized. Harry Potter was plagiarism. She took from everything and made a book.
I mean,
that's how
most writers function. So
yeah, but that's always how I felt about it. It's like it's not an original concept to me. It's like dead on the nose in a lot of cases.
I thought it was original in the sense that Harry grew up at the same rate her readers grew up, and until that and Hunger Games, I can't remember. No, that one came out first. The idea of like bad things can actually happen to children at school was, children can get caught up in combat.
Mm-hmm.
So there were some themes that were a little bit different. I don't know that the actual, but I mean that's. I guess that's like, to me that's like saying, I don't know, The Road wasn't unique because it's just another story about a guy traveling with a kid.
Yeah.
Because a guy traveling with a kid is one of the story tropes, but it's a story trope because it works really well. Coming of age stories aren't unique, but they're tropes because they work really well.
Mm-hmm.
The dead parents are a trope, but they're a trope because it works really well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I liked the books. I liked the books a lot. I thought they really butchered them with the movies.
Yeah, the movies butchered, especially since Hermione in the books is a bitch. People don't realize that she was mean.
They all suck in the book. I mean, there's in the movies, Ron makes one mean comment to Hermione and she goes crying in the bathroom. In the books, they abuse her for months.
Yeah, and then plus she did a shrinking spell on someone she didn't like and put her in a bottle, if I remember correctly.
Oh, they're all awful.
Yeah, they're mean, and it's like kids are mean. I'm sorry, but get used to it. Like
Potter, when his first introduction to Snape, is that he shows up late to class and then is a total brat to Snape.
Yep.
And everyone talks about Alan Rickman was great, and he was, but he was also 20 years too old for the role, and that really changed the whole meaning and purpose of Snape's character.
Exactly.
People want to talk. No, never mind. I'm not going to say that because we really will be here for another hour.
Yeah, and I just saw the time we do need to wrap things up. So we did just show your shit.
Yes, please go watch the zombie video if you haven't already. That's
Yes.
my big thing right now.
If you haven't already, actually, I don't think my mods have it. But
Well,
it's
I
actually
just
up
subbed
to
to your channel about 30 minutes ago, so
yeah.
I had
Awesome,
to
thank
catch
you.
up on some videos.
Yes, give her. She needs
The
lots of
zombie
subs.
the zombie video took me like 2 months. That's why I'm like really big on asking people to watch. I was like, please don't make me have wasted
I'm
the last
definitely
2
gonna
months.
watch it tonight. I'm not sure if I'll be streaming tonight because I'm literally exhausted from earlier today. But we're gonna do final thoughts and outros since we already did show your shit and stuff. But let it go. Final thoughts on tonight's conversation.
I'm really excited. There were so many people in the chat that like had gamed. I think that's very cool. I very frequently have people that show up and go, "I have no idea what you're talking about, but whatever." um, I mean, I always love talking about new games and the whole movement is the wrong word. The whole industry, I guess. Um, I'm really interested in how it changes and how it's developed, and like I said, I'm really happy to see this increase in indie developers that hopefully will put things back on a different path, or at least give people options. I think options are always good.
Yes. Nothing. You can't have too many options. Bo, I know you came in late, but final thoughts and
Well,
outro.
I haven't played tabletop role play games in years. The last tabletop game I actually played was Warhammer Fantasy, and that wasn't a role playing game. So I
No.
don't really.
There is a
There is a
role-playing fantasy.
Warhammer
Oh,
tabletop.
I know, but I played the miniature line up against the other person and battle it out. I didn't play the role playing game.
That's my
Uh,
husband's thing. My
yeah,
husband is
and
my husband is a war crack addict.
I'd always liked them. I always liked D&D years ago. But when I had left for the military and I got up to my permanent duty stations, I just couldn't find any groups of people that was doing it. So I just fell out of playing role playing games.
Well, you know what the
So
answer to this is, don't you?
well, I think there's a
Come
lot
play
of
with
internet
us,
stuff.
Daddy.
I think there's a lot of internet stuff.
Candy Mountain.
You can
Come
actually
play with us.
start getting involved in role play. But man, I'm doing all my video games now too. But I'm mostly retired. I might be able to find some time to get back into it.
Yep. And obviously, I'm Lavistro, the Dragon of Cyberspace. You can find me on the YouTubes, the Rumbles, which, if you have a Rumbles account, people, and you're watching, I need to get 200 hours before the end of June. And I don't get a lot of viewers because most of y'all are here on YouTube. So if you could support me on the Rumbles as well, same name, Lavistro, when I go live, that would be awesome. You don't have to because YouTube will always be here for me until I get banned. But I thought it was a fun and exciting conversation. I've always been wanting to talk some TTRPG stuff for a while. And I figured since TTRPGs are good for your mental health, people don't believe that, but it's actually true. And this is Men's Mental Health and PTSD Awareness Month. It was a great conversation. We covered a lot of topics today. So, Goat, thanks for coming. I enjoyed our conversation, our interview. Sorry for the couple of hiccups. And Bo, thanks for coming. And I'm glad your mom's doing well. But if you haven't, please go subscribe to the Goat. And y'all have a good night. If I stream tonight, it'll be a last second thing. But if I do stream, it's Lavistro Plays at 10:30 Central. It starts 10:15, but it's 10:30 when the game actually starts. 7 days a week. And then this Saturday's Dragon Cast, we will be having Brian the Dungeon Master, who is a keep playing Dungeon Master, and one of the ones I recommend. So we'll be learning how to find a good Dungeon Master and what's it like being a virtual tabletop RPG player. And then July 5th, I'm making sure we're still good. But we have a guest and veteran from the other side of the pond, named The Real Tomby. So if you don't know who
Woohoo!
Tomby is,
Tomby is
he's
awesome.
coming on. Well, I know you. We all know who he is, but I don't know if everyone in my I get people from all over YouTube. I got different circles in here, but he's
I'm just giving them a third party opinion. Tomby is awesome. Everyone should watch it.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know if you thought I was talking. Yeah.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Anyways,
Just telling.
I'm confirming of him, but the real Tomby should be here July 5th. And we have we're in talks with Sunker Maidens on Rumble and Yarnwitch as well,
Also
and
awesome.
a couple other gamers as well. Until then, I wish y'all happy gaming. Go play games your way, and y'all have a good night. You're still here. What? You thought there'd be a post-credit scene or something? This isn't a Disney movie. Show's over. Go get some sleep. Play a video game. Watch another YouTube video. I gotta take care of the Dragon Wing and possibly get some sleep myself. Goodbye, all, and thanks for watching. And happy gaming.